Hello and welcome. You're listening to English in Mastery. Today, you're not here to rush, not here to memorize rules, and not here to force yourself to sound perfect. You're here to practice real English the way it's actually used in daily life. Calmly, steadily, and naturally. Before we begin, take a second to settle in. Adjust your posture, relax your shoulders, and let your breathing slow down. You don't need to focus too hard. Just stay present. This practice works best when you're relaxed. Now, listen carefully. Shadowing is not about repeating perfectly. It's about staying with the rhythm, the flow, and the meaning. If you miss a word, keep going. If you feel slightly uncomfortable, that's okay. That's where progress lives. Let's start gently. Imagine it's a normal day. Nothing special, nothing stressful, just a regular moment in your life. Listen, I usually start my day slowly. I don't rush out of bed right away. I give myself a few minutes to wake up and get my thoughts together. Now, repeat. I usually start my day slowly. I don't rush out of bed right away. Now listen again. More naturally. I give myself a few minutes to wake up and get my thoughts together. Now, shadow it. I give myself a few minutes. Good. Keep going. Listen. Mornings set the tone for the rest of the day. So, I try not to start them in a panic. Even when I have a lot to do, I remind myself to take things one step at a time. Now, repeat. Mornings set the tone for the rest of the day. I take things one step at a time. Now listen again. There's no need to hurry if I stay focused. Now, shadow it. There's no need to hurry. Good. Let's move into a familiar situation. Listen. When I get ready, I think about what kind of day I want to have. Not in a dramatic way. Just a simple check-in with myself. Now, repeat. I think about what kind of day I want to have. Now listen again. It helps me stay grounded. Now, shadow it. It helps me stay grounded. Good. Now listen. As I go through my routine, English fits in naturally. I might listen to something while I make coffee, or review a few phrases while I'm getting dressed. It doesn't feel like studying. It just feels like part of my life. Now, repeat. English fits in naturally. It feels like part of my life. Now listen again. I don't separate learning from living anymore. Now, shadow it. I don't separate learning from living. Good. Let's slow down slightly and focus on clarity. Listen. When people speak to me in English, I don't panic if I don't catch every word. I focus on the main idea instead of the details. Now, repeat. I focus on the main idea. Now listen again. Understanding the message matters more than understanding every word. Now, shadow it. Understanding the message matters more. Good. This is an important shift. Listen. Real conversations move quickly. And that's okay. I allow myself to follow along without translating everything in my head. Now, repeat. I allow myself to follow along. Now listen again. I stop translating word by word. Now, shadow it. I stop translating. Good. Now imagine a simple interaction. Listen. Hey. How's it going today? Pretty good. Just taking things as they come. Now, repeat. Pretty good. Just taking things as they come. Now listen again. Nothing too exciting, but no complaints. Now, shadow it. No complaints. Good. These are the kinds of phrases people use every day. Listen. I'm getting used to responding without overthinking. My answers come out more smoothly than before. Now, repeat. My answers come out more smoothly. Now listen again. I don't freeze like I used to. Now, shadow it. I don't freeze. Good. Let's continue building. Listen. During the day, small moments add up. A short conversation, a quick message, a few sentences I hear in passing. All of it counts. Now. Repeat. Small moments add up. Now listen again. Consistency matters more than intensity. Now. Shadow it. Consistency matters more. Good. Listen carefully to this thought. I don't need long study sessions every time. I just need to stay connected to the language regularly. Now. Repeat. I need to stay connected regularly. Now listen again. That's how progress becomes sustainable. Now. Shadow it. Progress becomes sustainable. Good. Now imagine you're at work or school. Listen. I speak when I need to. Even if my sentence isn't perfect. I know people care more about understanding me than judging my grammar. Now. Repeat. People care more about understanding me. Now listen again. Perfection is not required for communication. Now. Shadow it. Perfection is not required. Good. Let's raise the level slightly. Listen. As I get more comfortable, I start noticing patterns, common expressions, natural pauses, the way native speakers soften their tone. Now. Repeat. I start noticing patterns. Now listen again. I pay attention without forcing myself. Now. Shadow it. I pay attention. Good. This awareness grows over time. Listen. I don't try to sound impressive. I try to sound clear and natural. Now. Repeat. I try to sound clear and natural. Now listen again. Simple language is powerful. Now. Shadow it. Simple language is powerful. Good. Stay with the rhythm. Listen. Sometimes I make mistakes. And that's fine. I correct myself when needed. Or I move on if the message is clear. Now. Repeat. I move on if the message is clear. Now listen again. Mistakes don't stop communication. Now. Shadow it. Mistakes don't stop communication. Good. Let's pause slightly and reflect. Listen. Compared to before, I feel less tense when I speak English. My mind feels quieter. And my reactions feel more natural. Now. Repeat. I feel less tense when I speak. Now listen again. My reactions feel more natural. Now. Shadow it. More natural. Good. As the day continues, English stays in the background. Listen. I don't force myself to practice at specific times. I let English appear when it fits. Now. Repeat. I let English appear when it fits. Now listen again. This makes learning feel lighter. Now. Shadow it. Learning feels lighter. Good. We'll continue building from here. Keeping everything realistic, steady, and connected to real life. As things move forward, the day doesn't suddenly become dramatic. It stays ordinary. And that's exactly why this kind of practice works. Listen. In real life, English shows up in simple moments, not in perfect lessons. It appears when someone asks a quick question, when I respond to a message, or when I hear a conversation nearby. Now. Repeat. English shows up in simple moments. Now listen again. It's part of normal life. Now. Shadow it. Part of normal life. Good. Listen. When someone speaks a little fast, I don't shut down anymore. I catch what I can. And I let the rest go. Now. Repeat. I catch what I can. Now listen again. I let the rest go. Now. Shadow it. I let the rest go. Good. This mindset makes everything easier. Listen. I remind myself that understanding doesn't have to be perfect to be effective. Now. Repeat. Understanding doesn't have to be perfect. Now listen again. It just has to be enough. Now. Shadow it. Enough. Good. Let's imagine a common situation. Listen. Do you have a minute? Yeah. Sure. What's up? Now. Repeat. Yeah. Sure. What's up? Now listen again. I'm listening. Now. Shadow it. I'm listening. Good. Notice how natural that feels. Listen. I don't prepare sentences in advance anymore. I trust myself to respond in the moment. Now. Repeat. I trust myself to respond. Now listen again. My instincts are getting better. Now. Shadow it. My instincts are getting better. Good. As confidence grows, speed follows naturally. Listen. I don't rush my words. But I don't hesitate as much either. Now. Repeat. I don't hesitate as much. Now listen again. My pace feels more balanced. Now. Shadow it. More balanced. Good. This balance matters in real conversations. Listen. When I don't know a word, I explain it in another way, instead of stopping. Now. Repeat. I explain it in another way. Now listen again. Communication keeps moving. Now. Shadow it. Communication keeps moving. Good. That's how real speakers handle gaps. Listen. They adjust. They rephrase. They keep going. Now. Repeat. They keep going. Now listen again. And so do I. Now. Shadow it. So do I. Good. Let's shift to listening again. Listen. When I hear English, I pay attention to the tone. Not just the words. I notice when someone sounds relaxed, unsure, confident, or polite. Now. Repeat. I pay attention to the tone. Now listen again. Tone carries meaning. Now. Shadow it. Tone carries meaning. Good. This awareness makes listening easier. Listen. Even if I miss a phrase, the tone helps me understand the situation. Now. Repeat. The tone helps me understand. Now listen again. Context fills in the gaps. Now. Shadow it. Context fills the gaps. Good. Now imagine a casual comment. Listen. It's been a long day. Yeah. I know what you mean. Now. Repeat. I know what you mean. Now listen again. Totally get it. Now. Shadow it. Totally get it. Good. These responses build connection. Listen. I don't need complex vocabulary to sound natural. Simple. Clear phrases work best. Now. Repeat. Simple phrases work best. Now listen again. They sound more human. Now. Shadow it. More human. Good. As time passes, my relationship with English changes. Listen. It feels less like a challenge and more like a familiar tool. Now. Repeat. A familiar tool. Now listen again. Something I can rely on. Now. Shadow it. I can rely on it. Good. Let's keep building steadily. Listen. When I speak longer, I focus on getting my point across, not on every single sentence. Now. Repeat. I focus on my point. Now listen again. Clarity over complexity. Now. Shadow it. Clarity over complexity. Good. This helps me stay relaxed. Listen. The more relaxed I am, the more natural I sound. Now. Repeat. The more relaxed I am. Now listen again. The more natural I sound. Now. Shadow it. More natural. Good. Now think about listening again. Listen. I don't listen for individual words anymore. I listen for meaning, intention, and direction. Now. Repeat. I listen for meaning. Now listen again. That's how real understanding happens. Now. Shadow it. Real understanding. Good. Let's imagine another everyday exchange. Listen. Are you free later? I think so. I'll let you know. Now. Repeat. I'll let you know. Now listen again. I'll get back to you. Now. Shadow it. I'll get back to you. Good. These phrases come up constantly. Listen. The more I hear them, the more automatic they become. Now. Repeat. More automatic. Now listen again. I don't have to think about them. Now. Shadow it. I don't have to think. Good. Over time. This automatic response builds fluency. Listen. Fluency isn't speed. It's ease. Now. Repeat. Fluency is ease. Now listen again. Feeling comfortable expressing myself. Now. Shadow it. Feeling comfortable? Good. Let's raise the level slightly. Listen. I can now follow longer conversations without feeling lost. Even if I miss a detail, I stay with the speaker. Now. Repeat. I stay with the speaker. Now listen again. I don't drop out mentally. Now. Shadow it. I stay present. Good. Presence is key. Listen. When I stay present, English flows more smoothly. Now. Repeat. English flows more smoothly. Now listen again. I'm part of the conversation. Now. Shadow it. Part of the conversation. Good. As the day winds down, I don't feel exhausted by English. Listen. It hasn't drained me. Because I didn't force it. Now. Repeat. I didn't force it. Now listen again. I let it fit naturally. Now. Shadow it. Fit naturally. Good. This is how progress compounds. Listen. Small. Realistic practice done consistently leads to real change. Now. Repeat. Small practice leads to real change. Now listen again. That change feels stable. Now. Shadow it. Feels stable. Good. We'll continue from here. Staying grounded in real situations, real reactions, and real English as it's used every day. As evening approaches, the pace of the day naturally slows, and that's when English often feels easier to use. Not because I try harder, but because I'm less tense. Listen, by the end of the day, I'm not aiming to perform. I'm just communicating. Now. Repeat. I'm just communicating. Now listen again. There's no pressure to impress anyone. Now. Shadow it. No pressure. Good. In these quieter moments, I notice how much smoother things feel compared to before. Listen. I don't search for words as much as I used to. They come when I need them. Now. Repeat. They come when I need them. Now listen again. I trust that they'll show up. Now. Shadow it. I trust they'll show up. Good. This trust changes everything. Listen. When I stop forcing accuracy, my fluency improves on its own. Now. Repeat. My fluency improves on its own. Now listen again. Ease creates flow. Now. Shadow it. Ease creates flow. Good. Let's imagine another realistic moment. Listen. How was your day? It was busy, but overall pretty good. Now. Repeat. Pretty good. Now listen again. Can't complain. Really. Now. Shadow it. Can't complain. Good. These responses feel natural because they are natural. Listen. Native speakers rely on simple structures more than advanced vocabulary. Now. Repeat. Simple structures matter. Now listen again. They keep conversations moving. Now. Shadow it. Keep things moving. Good. As conversations continue, I notice something else changing. Listen. I'm more comfortable expressing opinions, even when they're simple. Now. Repeat. I'm more comfortable expressing opinions. Now listen again. I don't feel the need to over-explain. Now, shadow it. I don't over-explain. Good. This clarity makes communication stronger. Listen. Saying less. But saying it clearly often works better. Now, repeat. Saying it clearly works better. Now listen again. People understand me more easily. Now, shadow it. More easily. Good. Let's move into a slightly longer thought. Listen. When I talk about my day or my plans, I focus on the main points, not every detail. Now, repeat. I focus on the main points. Now listen again. Details can come later if needed. Now, shadow it. Main points first. Good. This approach reduces stress. Listen. I don't feel rushed to finish my sentences. I let them unfold naturally. Now, repeat. I let them unfold naturally. Now listen again. I'm comfortable with small pauses. Now, shadow it. Comfortable with pauses. Good. Pauses are part of real speech. Listen. Silence doesn't mean failure. It gives me time to think. Now, repeat. Silence gives me time. Now listen again. I use it instead of fearing it. Now, shadow it. I use silence. Good. As listening improves, speaking follows. Listen. The more I listen without tension, the more natural my responses become. Now, repeat. Listening improves my speaking. Now listen again. Everything is connected. Now, shadow it. Everything is connected. Good. Let's imagine a relaxed conversation. Listen. Do you want to grab something to eat later? Yeah. That sounds nice. Now, repeat. That sounds nice. Now listen again. Let's see how things go. Now, shadow it. Let's see how things go. Good. These phrases leave space. And space feels natural. Listen. I don't need to decide everything immediately. Now, repeat. I don't need to decide immediately. Now listen again. Flexibility feels comfortable. Now, shadow it. Feels comfortable. Good. As my comfort grows, my listening stamina improves. Listen. I can listen for longer periods without getting tired. Now, repeat. I can listen longer. Now listen again. My focus stays steady. Now, shadow it. Focus stays steady. Good. This is important for real life. Listen. Conversations aren't short lessons. They're continuous and unpredictable. Now, repeat. Conversations are unpredictable. Now listen again. I stay adaptable. Now, shadow it. I stay adaptable. Good. Adaptability builds confidence. Listen. Even when topics change quickly, I stay engaged. Now, repeat. I stay engaged. Now listen again. I don't panic when things shift. Now, shadow it. I don't panic. Good. Let's raise the level slightly again. Listen. I'm beginning to notice nuance. Small differences in meaning and tone. Now, repeat. I notice nuance. Now listen again. This deepens my understanding. Now, shadow it. Deepens my understanding. Good. Nuance comes with exposure, not memorization. Listen. I don't study expressions in isolation. I hear them in context. Now, repeat. I hear them in context. Now listen again. That's why they stick. Now, shadow it. That's why they stick. Good. As the evening continues, English feels less like a second language and more like an additional voice. Listen. I don't switch personalities when I speak English. Now, repeat. I don't switch personalities. Now listen again. I sound like myself. Now, Shadow it. I sound like myself. Good. This is a major shift. Listen. Being myself in English feels freeing. Now. Repeat. It feels freeing. Now listen again. I'm not acting anymore. Now. Shadow it. Not acting. Good. When I'm myself, conversations feel lighter. Listen. I laugh more naturally. I react more honestly. Now. Repeat. I react honestly. Now listen again. That's real communication. Now. Shadow it. Real communication. Good. Let's slow the pace again. Listen. At the end of the day, I don't review mistakes. I reflect on what went well. Now. Repeat. I reflect on what went well. Now listen again. This keeps my motivation steady. Now. Shadow it. Motivation stays steady. Good. Focusing on progress, not problems. Makes me want to continue. Listen. I look forward to using English again tomorrow. Now. Repeat. I look forward to it. Now listen again. It doesn't feel like a burden. Now. Shadow it. Not a burden. Good. As the night settles in, English quietly fades into the background. Listen. I don't need to practice anymore tonight. Now. Repeat. I don't need to practice anymore. Now listen again. I let my mind rest. Now. Shadow it. I let it rest. Good. This rest is part of the process. Listen. Progress happens during rest as well. Now. Repeat. Progress happens during rest. Now listen again. My brain continues connecting things. Now. Shadow it. Still connecting. Good. We'll continue building from here, keeping the pace natural, the language real, and the focus on how English fits into everyday life without force or pressure. As the next day begins, nothing feels reset or lost. Everything simply continues. And that's an important realization. Listen, when I wake up again, I don't feel like I'm starting from zero with English. Now. Repeat. I don't feel like I'm starting from zero. Now listen again. Everything I practiced yesterday is still there. Now. Shadow it. Still there. Good. This continuity builds confidence over time. Listen. I don't need to warm up for a long time before using English. My mind adjusts naturally. Now. Repeat. My mind adjusts naturally. Now listen again. Familiar patterns come back quickly. Now. Shadow it. Come back quickly. Good. As I move into the day, English meets me where I am. Listen. I don't force myself into difficult topics right away. I start with what feels comfortable. Now. Repeat. I start with what feels comfortable. Now listen again. Comfort creates momentum. Now. Shadow it. Creates momentum. Good. Momentum matters more than intensity. Listen. When I feel comfortable, I'm more willing to speak and listen. Now. Repeat. I'm more willing to speak. Now listen again. I stay open instead of guarded. Now. Shadow it. Stay open. Good. Let's imagine another real-life situation. Listen. Can you send me that file later? Yeah. No problem. I'll take care of it. Now. Repeat. I'll take care of it. Now listen again. I'll send it over later. Now. Shadow it. Send it over. Good. These phrases feel natural because they're practical. Listen. Real English is functional, not fancy. Now. Repeat. Real English is functional. Now listen again. It solves problems and moves things forward. Now. Shadow it. Moves things forward. Good. As the day unfolds, I notice something else. Listen. I understand jokes and casual comments more easily now. Now. Repeat. I understand casual comments more easily. Now listen again, even when they're subtle. Now, shadow it, even when subtle. Good. This shows deeper listening. Listen. Humor often depends on tone and timing, not complex words. Now, repeat. Humor depends on tone and timing. Now listen again. I'm starting to catch that. Now, shadow it. Starting to catch it. Good. Let's continue. Listen. When conversations shift direction, I don't feel lost anymore. I adjust and keep going. Now, repeat. I adjust and keep going. Now listen again. I stay flexible. Now, shadow it. Stay flexible. Good. Flexibility is a sign of growing fluency. Listen. I no longer cling to prepared sentences. I respond to what's actually being said. Now, repeat. I respond to what's being said. Now listen again. This makes conversations real. Now, shadow it. Conversations feel real. Good. Let's raise the level again. Listen. I can now explain simple ideas in more than one way. Now, repeat. I can explain ideas in different ways. Now listen again. This helps when someone doesn't understand me right away. Now, shadow it. Helps when needed. Good. This skill is powerful. Listen. Rephrasing is more useful than knowing rare vocabulary. Now, repeat. Rephrasing is more useful. Now listen again. It keeps communication alive. Now, shadow it. Keeps it alive. Good. As listening improves, I notice more natural expressions. Listen. Phrases like that make sense. I see what you mean. Or, fair enough come to me more easily. Now, repeat. That makes sense. Now listen again. I see what you mean. Now, shadow it. I see what you mean. Good. These phrases show understanding without effort. Listen. They help conversations flow smoothly. Now, repeat. Conversations flow smoothly. Now listen again. Without interruption. Now, shadow it. Without interruption. Good. Let's imagine another everyday exchange. Listen. Are you okay with that plan? Yeah. I think that works. Now, repeat. I think that works. Now listen again. Let's go with it. Now, shadow it. Let's go with it. Good. Decision-making feels easier in English now. Listen. I don't overthink small choices. Now, repeat. I don't overthink small choices. Now listen again. I trust my judgment. Now, shadow it. Trust my judgment. Good. Trust builds speed naturally. Listen. I speak at a steady pace that feels comfortable. Now, repeat. A steady pace. Now listen again. Not too fast. Not too slow. Now, shadow it. Comfortable pace. Good. This balance keeps conversations relaxed. Listen. When I relax, people respond more positively. Now, repeat. People respond positively. Now listen again. Communication feels mutual. Now, shadow it. Feels mutual. Good. Mutual understanding is the goal. Listen. English is no longer something I perform. It's something I use. Now, repeat. Something I use. Now listen again. Like any other skill. Now, shadow it. Like any skill. Good. As the day continues, I handle longer interactions. Listen. Meetings, discussions, or extended conversations don't overwhelm me anymore. Now, repeat. They don't overwhelm me. Now listen again. I manage my energy better. Now, shadow it. Manage my energy. Good. This stamina develops naturally. Listen. I don't push myself to understand everything perfectly. I stay engaged instead. Now. Repeat. I stay engaged. Now listen again. Engagement matters more than perfection. Now. Shadow it. Engagement matters more. Good. Let's slow down again. Listen. When I don't understand something, I ask calmly. Now. Repeat. I ask calmly. Now listen again. Could you say that again is enough? Now. Shadow it. Say that again. Good. Simple clarification keeps things moving. Listen. I don't feel embarrassed about asking anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't feel embarrassed. Now listen again. Everyone does this. Now. Shadow it. Everyone does this. Good. This realization removes pressure. Listen. As pressure fades, my confidence becomes stable. Now. Repeat. Confidence becomes stable. Now listen again. Not temporary. Now. Shadow it. Not temporary. Good. Stability is what leads toward advanced fluency. Listen. I'm not rushing toward C1. I'm growing into it naturally. Now. Repeat. Growing into it naturally. Now listen again. Step by step. Now. Shadow it. Step by step. Good. With this approach, English continues to integrate into my life without resistance. As this rhythm continues, I notice something important changing inside me. Listen. I no longer measure my English day by day. I measure it by how comfortable I feel expressing myself. Now. Repeat. I measure comfort, not speed. Now listen again. Comfort grows quietly over time. Now. Shadow it. Grows quietly. Good. This quiet growth is easy to miss if I'm always comparing myself to others. Listen. I stop comparing my English to anyone else's. Now. Repeat. I stop comparing myself. Now listen again. My journey is personal. Now. Shadow it. Personal. Good. When I focus on my own progress, everything feels lighter. Listen. I notice small wins that used to go unnoticed. Now. Repeat. I notice small wins. Now listen again. They matter more than I thought. Now. Shadow it. They matter. Good. Let's imagine a realistic situation again. Listen. Someone explains something complicated, and I don't understand every detail, but I understand the main point. Now. Repeat. I understand the main point. Now listen again. That's enough to respond appropriately. Now. Shadow it. That's enough. Good. This ability keeps conversations moving forward. Listen. I don't interrupt to translate in my head anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't translate anymore. Now listen again. I stay with the speaker. Now. Shadow it. Stay with the speaker. Good. Staying present is a powerful skill. Listen. Presence helps me react naturally instead of mechanically. Now. Repeat. I react naturally. Now listen again. My responses feel real. Now. Shadow it. Feel real. Good. As my listening improves, my intuition grows stronger. Listen. I can often guess the meaning of unfamiliar words from context. Now. Repeat. I guess from context. Now listen again. I don't panic when I hear new words. Now. Shadow it. I don't panic. Good. This calm reaction keeps my mind open. Listen. An open mind absorbs language faster. Now. Repeat. An open mind absorbs faster. Now listen again. Tension slows everything down. Now. Shadow it. Tension slows things down. Good. Let's move into another everyday exchange. Listen. What do you think about this idea? I think it's a good start. but we might need to adjust a few things. Now, repeat. It's a good start. Now listen again. We might need to adjust a few things. Now, shadow it. Adjust a few things. Good. Notice how natural and flexible that sounds. Listen. I don't need strong opinions to participate in discussions. Now, repeat. I don't need strong opinions. Now listen again. Simple reactions are enough. Now, shadow it. Simple reactions. Good. This allows me to stay involved without stress. Listen. I can agree, disagree, or stay neutral comfortably. Now, repeat. I stay neutral comfortably. Now listen again. That's part of real communication. Now, shadow it. Real communication. Good. As conversations become longer, I manage my energy more wisely. Listen. I don't push myself to speak non-stop. Now, repeat. I don't push myself. Now listen again. I listen actively instead. Now, shadow it. Listen actively. Good. Active listening reduces pressure on speaking. Listen. When I listen well, my responses come more easily. Now, repeat. Responses come more easily. Now listen again. Everything feels connected. Now, shadow it. Connected. Good. Let's raise the level again. Gently. Listen. I'm starting to express more subtle thoughts. Not just basic information. Now, repeat. More subtle thoughts. Now listen again. I explain how I feel. Not just what I do. Now, shadow it. How I feel. Good. Emotional language adds depth to communication. Listen. I can say things like, I'm not entirely sure. Or, I'm still figuring it out. Now, repeat. I'm still figuring it out. Now listen again. These phrases sound honest and natural. Now, shadow it. Honest and natural. Good. Honesty builds connection. Listen. People respond better when I sound genuine. Not perfect. Now, repeat. Genuine. Not perfect. Now listen again. That's what builds trust. Now, shadow it. Builds trust. Good. As trust builds, conversations feel safer. Listen. I'm less afraid of making mistakes in front of others. Now, repeat. Less afraid of mistakes. Now listen again. Mistakes don't define me. Now, shadow it. Don't define me. Good. This mindset creates freedom. Listen. When I feel free, my English flows more naturally. Now, repeat. It flows naturally. Now listen again. Without forcing it. Now, shadow it. Without forcing. Good. Let's imagine a slightly more advanced situation. Listen. Someone asks me to explain a process or an idea. I take my time and focus on clarity. Now, repeat. I focus on clarity. Now listen again. I break things into simple steps. Now, shadow it. Simple steps. Good. Breaking ideas down is a real-life skill. Listen. Complex ideas sound clearer when explained simply. Now, repeat. Explained simply. Now listen again. That's effective communication. Now, shadow it. Effective communication. Good. This approach works in many settings. Listen. At work. In study. Or in daily conversations. Now, repeat. In daily conversations. Now listen again. English adapts to my needs. Now, shadow it. Adapts to my needs. Good. As the day goes on, I notice my reactions feel faster. Listen. I don't pause as long before responding. Now, repeat. I respond faster. Now listen again, but I still stay calm. Now, shadow it. Stay calm. Good. Speed with calmness is a sign of progress. Listen. I'm not rushing my words. I'm simply more ready. Now. Repeat. I'm more ready. Now listen again. Readiness replaces hesitation. Now. Shadow it. Replaces hesitation. Good. Let's slow down again. Listen. I remind myself that progress isn't loud. Now. Repeat. Progress isn't loud. Now listen again. It's steady and quiet. Now. Shadow it. Steady and quiet. Good. This steady progress builds a strong foundation. Listen. With this foundation, advanced fluency becomes possible over time. Now. Repeat. Becomes possible over time. Now listen again. Without pressure. Now. Shadow it. Without pressure. Good. This is how English continues to grow naturally, as part of everyday life. Steady, realistic, and deeply connected to real communication. As this steady approach continues, I start noticing how English fits into more complex situations without feeling heavy or overwhelming. Listen, I can follow discussions that last longer, even when opinions differ or ideas become more detailed. Now. Repeat. I can follow longer discussions. Now listen again. I stay engaged even when things get complex. Now. Shadow it. Stay engaged. Good. This engagement comes from familiarity, not from knowing every rule. Listen. I recognize patterns in how people explain, agree, hesitate, or soften their words. Now. Repeat. I recognize patterns. Now listen again. These patterns guide my understanding. Now. Shadow it. Guide my understanding. Good. Patterns are everywhere in real English. Listen. When someone starts a sentence with, honestly, to be fair, or from my perspective, I already know what kind of message is coming. Now. Repeat. I know what's coming. Now listen again. This helps me listen more efficiently. Now. Shadow it. More efficiently. Good. Efficiency reduces mental effort. Listen. I don't feel mentally exhausted after long conversations anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't feel exhausted. Now listen again. My energy lasts longer. Now. Shadow it. Lasts longer. Good. This stamina is important in real life. Listen. Meetings, group discussions, or casual debates don't drain me the way they used to. Now. Repeat. They don't drain me. Now listen again. I manage my focus better. Now. Shadow it. Manage my focus. Good. Let's imagine a realistic professional exchange. Listen. What's your take on this so far? I think it's heading in the right direction. But there are a few things we should reconsider. Now. Repeat. Heading in the right direction. Now listen again. We should reconsider a few things. Now. Shadow it. Reconsider a few things. Good. Notice how balanced that sounds. Listen. I don't sound extreme or uncertain. I sound thoughtful. Now. Repeat. I sound thoughtful. Now listen again. That's intentional communication. Now. Shadow it. Intentional communication. Good. As my confidence grows, I also become more comfortable disagreeing politely. Listen. I don't completely agree with that, but I see your point. Now. Repeat. I see your point. Now listen again. This keeps the conversation respectful. Now. Shadow it. Respectful. Good. Politeness is a key part of advanced fluency. Listen. Native speakers often soften their opinions to keep things smooth. Now. Repeat. They soften their opinions. Now listen again. I start doing the same. Now. Shadow it. I do the same. Good. This softening makes interactions feel natural. Listen. Instead of saying, you're wrong, I say I'm not sure that fully applies here. Now. Repeat. I'm not sure that applies. Now listen again. This sounds calmer and more professional. Now. Shadow it. Calmer and professional. Good. These choices matter. Listen. Fluency at a higher level is about judgment, not just language. Now. Repeat. It's about judgment. Now listen again. Knowing how to say things matters. Now. Shadow it. How to say things. Good. As listening deepens, I also pick up on implied meaning. Listen. Sometimes people don't say exactly what they mean, but I can sense it. Now. Repeat. I can sense it. Now listen again. Tone and context reveal a lot. Now. Shadow it. Tone and context. Good. This awareness is subtle, but powerful. Listen. It helps me respond appropriately. Not literally. Now. Repeat. Respond appropriately. Now listen again. That's real understanding. Now. Shadow it. Real understanding. Good. Let's shift back to everyday life. Listen. Even casual conversations start to feel richer. I notice humor, irony, and understatement more clearly. Now. Repeat. I notice humor and irony. Now listen again. This makes conversations more enjoyable. Now. Shadow it. More enjoyable. Good. Enjoyment keeps motivation alive. Listen. When I enjoy using English, I naturally want to use it more. Now. Repeat. I want to use it more. Now listen again. Motivation comes from ease. Now. Shadow it. Comes from ease. Good. Let's imagine a relaxed social exchange. Listen. That's one way to look at it. I guess. Yeah. I suppose so. Now. Repeat. I suppose so. Now listen again. It depends on the situation. Now. Shadow it. Depends on the situation. Good. These phrases show flexibility. Listen. Flexibility allows me to participate without taking strong positions. Now. Repeat. Participate without pressure. Now listen again. That feels comfortable. Now. Shadow it. Feels comfortable. Good. As my comfort increases, I begin expressing more nuanced feelings. Listen. I'm not completely satisfied, but I'm okay with how things turned out. Now. Repeat. I'm okay with how things turned out. Now listen again. This kind of balance sounds natural. Now. Shadow it. Sounds natural. Good. Balanced language reflects balanced thinking. Listen. I don't speak in extremes as much anymore. Now. Repeat. I avoid extremes. Now listen again. My language feels more mature. Now. Shadow it. More mature. Good. This maturity moves me closer to advanced use. Listen. I can explain reasons, give context, and add small clarifications without losing my flow. Now. Repeat. I don't lose my flow. Now listen again. Everything connects smoothly. Now. Shadow it. Connects smoothly. Good. Let's focus on listening again. Listen. I can follow different accents more easily now. Now. Repeat. Different accents. Now listen again. I don't get stuck on pronunciation differences. Now. Shadow it. Don't get stuck. Good. This adaptability matters globally. Listen. English isn't just one sound or style. Now. Repeat. It has many styles. Now listen again. I adjust naturally. Now. Shadow it. Adjust naturally. Good. Adjustment becomes automatic with exposure. Listen. I no longer label accents as difficult or easy. I just listen. Now. Repeat. I just listen. Now listen again. This openness improves comprehension. Now. Shadow it. Improves comprehension. Good. As my understanding deepens, my confidence becomes quieter. Listen. I don't feel the need to prove my level anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't need to prove it. Now listen again. I just communicate. Now. Shadow it. Just communicate. Good. Quiet confidence is strong confidence. Listen. I know I can handle most situations that come up. Now. Repeat. I can handle them. Now listen again. That knowledge is calming. Now. Shadow it. Calming. Good. Let's slow the pace slightly. Listen. When conversations end, I don't replay them obsessively in my head. Now. Repeat. I don't replay them. Now listen again. I let them go. Now. Shadow it. Let them go. Good. Letting go prevents burnout. Listen. I trust that each interaction contributes to my growth. Now. Repeat. It contributes to my growth. Now listen again. Even imperfect ones. Now. Shadow it. Even imperfect ones. Good. This trust keeps me consistent. Listen. Consistency is what carries me forward. Now. Repeat. Consistency carries me forward. Now listen again. Not pressure. Now. Shadow it. Not pressure. Good. With this mindset, English continues to integrate more deeply into my thinking, my reactions, and my daily interactions, becoming less of a task and more of a natural extension of how I communicate in the world. As this integration deepens, I begin to notice how English shapes my thinking without interrupting it. Listen. I don't translate my thoughts before speaking anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't translate my thoughts. Now listen again. I think and respond in the same flow. Now. Shadow it. Same flow. Good. This flow feels natural because it mirrors how real communication works. Listen. In conversations, I focus more on the other person than on my own language. Now. Repeat. I focus on the other person. Now listen again. This makes my responses more relevant. Now. Shadow it. More relevant. Good. Relevance builds connection. Listen. When I'm engaged, I ask better questions without planning them. Now. Repeat. I ask better questions. Now listen again. Curiosity guides me. Now. Shadow it. Curiosity guides me. Good. Curiosity keeps conversations alive. Listen. I use questions like, what do you think about that? How did that turn out? Or what made you decide that? Now. Repeat. What made you decide that? Now listen again. These questions sound natural and open. Now. Shadow it. Natural and open. Good. Open questions invite real answers. Listen. I don't rush to fill silence anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't rush silence. Now listen again. Silence gives space for thought. Now. Shadow it. Space for thought. Good. This space makes conversations feel balanced. Listen. I'm comfortable listening longer without interrupting. Now. Repeat. Comfortable listening longer. Now listen again. This helps me understand people better. Now. Shadow it. Understand people better. Good. Understanding people is the heart of language. Listen. As my understanding improves, I respond with more empathy. Now. Repeat. I respond with empathy. Now listen again. My tone softens naturally. Now. Shadow it. Tone softens. Good. Tone matters more than perfect words. Listen. Even simple phrases can sound thoughtful when the tone is right. Now. Repeat. Tone is important. Now listen again. It shapes meaning. Now. Shadow it. Shapes meaning. Good. Let's imagine another realistic exchange. Listen. That must have been stressful. Yeah. It was. But I managed. Now. Repeat. I managed. Now listen again. I got through it. Now. Shadow it. Got through it. Good. These phrases show resilience. Listen. I can express support without sounding unnatural. Now. Repeat. I can express support. Now listen again. That builds trust. Now. Shadow it. Builds trust. Good. Trust deepens conversations. Listen. When someone shares something personal, I respond simply and sincerely. Now. Repeat. Simply and sincerely. Now listen again. I don't overthink my response. Now. Shadow it. Don't overthink. Good. Overthinking blocks connection. Listen. As my confidence stabilizes, I speak with more intention. Now. Repeat. More intention. Now listen again. I choose my words calmly. Now. Shadow it. Choose calmly. Good. Calm choices lead to clearer messages. Listen. I don't rush to finish my thoughts. I let them develop naturally. Now. Repeat. Let them develop. Now listen again. This sounds more confident. Now. Shadow it. More confident. Good. Confidence grows from comfort, not speed. Listen. I'm comfortable saying I don't know when I truly don't. Now. Repeat. I don't know. Now listen again. That honesty feels natural. Now. Shadow it. Feels natural. Good. Honesty simplifies communication. Listen. Instead of guessing, I ask for clarification calmly. Now. Repeat. Ask for clarification. Now listen again. That prevents confusion. Now. Shadow it. Prevents confusion. Good. Clear communication saves energy. Listen. I manage conversations without feeling drained afterward. Now. Repeat. Without feeling drained. Now listen again. My energy stays steady. Now. Shadow it. Stays steady. Good. This steadiness allows me to use English longer each day. Listen. I don't count minutes anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't count minutes. Now listen again. I focus on quality. Now. Shadow it. Focus on quality. Good. Quality practice builds lasting skills. Listen. As I move toward more advanced use, I notice subtle differences in phrasing. Now. Repeat. Subtle differences. Now listen again. Small changes affect meaning. Now. Shadow it. Affect. Meaning. Good. Awareness of nuance grows with exposure. Listen. I hear when something sounds too direct or too vague. Now. Repeat. Too direct or too vague. Now listen again. I adjust naturally. Now. Shadow it. Adjust naturally. Good. This adjustment reflects higher level fluency. Listen. I choose softer expressions when needed. Now. Repeat. Softer expressions. Now listen again. This keeps conversations comfortable. Now. Shadow it. Comfortable. Good. Comfort encourages openness. Listen. People open up more when communication feels safe. Now. Repeat. Feels safe. Now listen again. That deepens interaction. Now. Shadow it. Deepens interaction. Good. As interactions deepen, my listening becomes more patient. Listen. I allow people to finish their thoughts fully. Now. Repeat. Finish their thoughts. Now listen again. I don't jump ahead. Now. Shadow it. Don't jump ahead. Good. Patience improves understanding. Listen. When I fully understand someone, my response becomes clearer. Now. Repeat. Response becomes clearer. Now listen again. Clarity comes naturally. Now. Shadow it. Comes naturally. Good. Let's imagine another everyday moment. Listen. I'll think about it and let you know. Sounds good. Take your time. Now. Repeat. Take your time. Now listen again. No rush. Now. Shadow it. No rush. Good. These phrases reduce pressure. Listen. Reduced pressure leads to smoother communication. Now. Repeat. Smoother communication. Now listen again. Less tension. Now. Shadow it. Less tension. Good. Less tension improves accuracy naturally. Listen. When I'm relaxed, my grammar improves without effort. Now. Repeat. Improves without effort. Now listen again. My pronunciation stabilizes too. Now. Shadow it. Stabilizes. Good. Stability is a sign of integration. Listen. English feels integrated into how I think and react. Now. Repeat. Integrated. Now listen again. Not separate anymore. Now. Shadow it. Not separate. Good. This integration means I don't switch modes. Listen. I'm the same person in English as in my first language. Now. Repeat. Same person. Now listen again. That feels authentic. Now. Shadow it. Authentic. Good. Authenticity is powerful. Listen. When I sound authentic, people respond more positively. Now. Repeat. Respond positively. Now listen again. Conversations feel smoother. Now. Shadow it. Smoother. Good. Smooth conversations build confidence quietly. Listen. I don't announce my progress to myself. I just notice it. Now. Repeat. I notice it. Now listen again. It's subtle but real. Now. Shadow it. Subtle but real. Good. This subtle progress accumulates over time. Listen. Day by day. English becomes easier to live with. Now. Repeat. Easier to live with. Now listen again. That's real fluency. Now. Shadow it. Real fluency. Good. As this phase continues, I stay patient and consistent, allowing English to deepen naturally in my daily life, shaped by real conversations, real listening, and real human connection. As this comfort settles in, I start to notice how English supports more reflective thinking, not just quick reactions. Listen. I can pause, consider my words, and still stay connected to the conversation. Now. Repeat. I can pause and consider my words. Now listen again. I don't lose my place when I pause. Now. Shadow it. I don't lose my place. Good. This ability to pause without breaking the flow feels mature and controlled. Listen. I'm no longer afraid of sounding slow. I'm focused on sounding clear. Now. Repeat. I'm focused on sounding clear. Now listen again. Clarity feels confident. Now. Shadow it. Feels confident. Good. Confidence at this level is calm. Not loud. Listen. I don't dominate conversations. And I don't disappear either. Now. Repeat. I don't disappear. Now listen again. I stay present and balanced. Now. Shadow it. Stay balanced. Good. Balance creates trust in communication. Listen. People feel comfortable speaking with me because I listen and respond thoughtfully. Now. Repeat. I respond thoughtfully. Now listen again. This makes conversations smoother. Now. And shadow it. Smoother. Good. Let's imagine a realistic situation that requires explanation. Listen. Could you walk me through how this works? Sure. I'll explain it step by step. Now. Repeat. Step by step. Now listen again. I'll keep it simple. Now. Shadow it. Keep it simple. Good. Simplicity shows control. Listen. When I explain things, I check that the other person is following. Now. Repeat. I check if they're following. Now listen again. I adjust if needed. Now. Shadow it. Adjust if needed. Good. Adjustment is a real-life skill. Listen. I don't repeat the same sentence louder when someone doesn't understand. I rephrase it calmly. Now. Repeat. I rephrase it calmly. Now listen again. That keeps communication respectful. Now. Shadow it. Respectful. Good. Respect builds stronger interactions. Listen. As conversations become more detailed, I manage information better. Now. Repeat. I manage information better. Now listen again. I highlight what matters most. Now. Shadow it. What matters most? Good. Highlighting key points keeps conversations clear. Listen. I don't overload people with unnecessary details. Now. Repeat. I don't overload people. Now listen again. I stay focused. Now. Shadow it. Stay focused. Good. Focus is essential at higher levels. Listen. I notice when it's time to elaborate and when it's time to stop. Now. Repeat. I know when to stop. Now listen again. This awareness feels natural. Now. Shadow it. Feels natural. Good. Let's move into another everyday interaction. Listen. Do you want to add anything else? I think that covers the main points. Now. Repeat. That covers the main points. Now listen again. We can discuss details later. Now. Shadow it. Details later. Good. These phrases sound professional and relaxed. Listen. I don't feel pressure to fill every moment with words. Now. Repeat. No pressure to fill space. Now listen again. Silence is acceptable. Now. Shadow it. Silence is acceptable. Good. Accepting silence reduces tension. Listen. When silence appears, I stay calm instead of searching for words. Now. Repeat. I stay calm. Now listen again. Calm keeps my mind clear. Now. Shadow it. Keeps my mind clear. Good. A clear mind supports better language use. Listen. I can follow abstract ideas more easily now. Now. Repeat. Abstract ideas. Now listen again. I don't need concrete examples every time. Now. Shadow it. Don't need examples. Good. This shows deeper comprehension. Listen. When someone shares an opinion, I can respond thoughtfully, even if it's unfamiliar. Now. Repeat. Respond thoughtfully. Now listen again. I don't shut down. Now. Shadow it. Don't shut down. Good. Openness allows growth. Listen. I stay curious instead of defensive. Now. Repeat. I stay curious. Now listen again. Curiosity leads to understanding. Now. Shadow it. Leads to understanding. Good. Let's imagine a reflective exchange. Listen. I've been thinking about this lately. Yeah. It's something worth considering. Now. Repeat. Worth considering. Now listen again. There's more than one way to see it. Now. Shadow it. More than one way. Good. These phrases show flexibility and maturity. Listen. I don't rush to conclusions in English anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't rush to conclusions. Now listen again. I leave space for thought. Now, shadow it. Space for thought. Good. Thoughtful speech builds credibility. Listen. People trust speakers who take their time. Now, repeat. Take their time. Now listen again. Rushed speech sounds uncertain. Now, shadow it. Sounds uncertain. Good. Slowing down improves authority. Listen. I speak with a steady rhythm that feels natural. Now, repeat. Steady rhythm. Now listen again. My voice stays relaxed. Now, shadow it. Stays relaxed. Good. A relaxed voice supports clear pronunciation. Listen. I don't exaggerate sounds or force intonation. Now, repeat. I don't force it. Now listen again. Natural intonation develops with time. Now, shadow it. Develops with time. Good. Time and exposure shape pronunciation best. Listen. I accept my accent as part of my identity. Now, repeat. Part of my identity. Now listen again. Clarity matters more than imitation. Now, shadow it. Clarity matters more. Good. This acceptance removes pressure. Listen. When pressure disappears, my speech becomes more consistent. Now, repeat. More consistent. Now listen again. Consistency builds trust. Now, shadow it. Builds trust. Good. Trust shows up in how people respond. Listen. People focus on my message, not my mistakes. Now, repeat. Focus on my message. Now listen again. That's effective communication. Now, shadow it. Effective communication. Good. Let's move toward a slightly more advanced reflection. Listen. I'm able to summarize conversations clearly afterward. Now, repeat. I can summarize clearly. Now listen again. I capture the main ideas. Now, shadow it. Main ideas. Good. Summarizing shows real understanding. Listen. I don't repeat conversations word for word. I explain the meaning. Now, repeat. I explain the meaning. Now listen again. Meaning matters most. Now, shadow it. Matters most. Good. This skill is useful in many settings. Listen. At work. In study. Or in daily life. Now, repeat. Daily life. Now listen again. English supports my thinking. Now, shadow it. Supports my thinking. Good. Supporting thinking is a sign of integration. Listen. English is no longer separate from my reasoning. Now, repeat. Not separate. Now listen again. It's part of how I process ideas. Now, shadow it. Process ideas. Good. This integration makes complex communication feel manageable. Listen. I don't feel intimidated by advanced speakers anymore. Now, repeat. I don't feel intimidated. Now listen again. I focus on understanding and responding. Now, shadow it. Focus on responding. Good. Response is more important than comparison. Listen. I stay in my own lane and communicate clearly. Now, repeat. Stay in my own lane. Now listen again. That keeps me confident. Now, shadow it. Keeps me confident. Good. Confidence at this stage feels quiet and stable. Listen. I don't question every sentence. I say, now. Repeat. I don't question it. Now listen again. I trust my ability. Now, shadow it. Trust my ability. Good. Trust allows fluency to continue growing. Listen. With trust. English continues to settle naturally into my daily communication. Supporting clear thinking, thoughtful expression, and calm, confident interaction in real-life situations. As this confidence stabilizes, I begin to notice how English supports more complex interactions without adding stress. Listen. I can handle unexpected questions without freezing or panicking. Now. Repeat. I can handle unexpected questions. Now listen again. I stay calm, even when I need a moment to think. Now. Shadow it. Stay calm. Good. This calm response creates space for clearer thinking. Listen. When I don't have an immediate answer, I acknowledge it naturally instead of avoiding it. Now. Repeat. I acknowledge it naturally. Now listen again. I buy myself time without sounding unsure. Now. Shadow it. Buy myself time. Good. This is a practical skill. Listen. Phrases like, let me think for a second. That's a good question. Or, I haven't thought about it that way. Come easily now. Now. Repeat. That's a good question. Now listen again. Let me think for a second. Now. Shadow it. Let me think. Good. These phrases sound confident because they are honest. Listen. I no longer feel embarrassed about taking a brief pause. Now. Repeat. I'm not embarrassed. Now listen again. Pausing feels natural. Now. Shadow it. Feels natural. Good. Natural pauses make speech clearer. Listen. When I speak longer, I organize my thoughts as I go. Now. Repeat. I organize my thoughts. Now listen again. I don't memorize speeches. Now. Shadow it. Don't memorize. Good. Real communication isn't scripted. Listen. I focus on the direction of my message, not the exact wording. Now. Repeat. The direction of my message. Now listen again. This keeps me flexible. Now. Shadow it. Keeps me flexible. Good. Flexibility allows me to adjust mid-sentence without stress. Listen. If a sentence isn't working, I change it smoothly. Now. Repeat. I change it smoothly. Now listen again. I don't stop completely. Now. Shadow it. Don't stop. Good. This flow is important. Listen. Conversations are dynamic, not perfect lines. Now. Repeat. Conversations are dynamic. Now listen again. I move with them. Now. Shadow it. Move with them. Good. Let's imagine a realistic discussion. Listen. We might need to look at this from another angle. Yeah. That could help clarify things. Now. Repeat. Another angle. Now listen again. That could help clarify things. Now. Shadow it. Clarify things. Good. These phrases signal collaboration. Listen. I sound cooperative instead of defensive. Now. Repeat. I sound cooperative. Now listen again. That changes the tone of conversations. Now. Shadow it. Changes the tone. Good. Tone guides outcomes. Listen. When my tone is calm and open, people respond positively. Now. Repeat. Respond positively. Now, listen again. Communication becomes easier. Now. Shadow it. Easier. Good. As my language stabilizes, I begin to notice more control over register. Listen. I adjust how formal or casual I sound, depending on the situation. Now. Repeat. I adjust my tone. Now listen again. Context guides my choices. Now. Shadow it. Context guides me. Good. This awareness develops naturally through exposure. Listen. I don't need a rule book to know when to sound more relaxed or more professional. Now. Repeat. I don't need a rule book. Now listen again. I feel it. Now. Shadow it. I feel it. Good. Feeling language is a sign of deeper fluency. Listen. I recognize when a phrase sounds too stiff or too casual. Now. Repeat. Too stiff or too casual? Now listen again. I adjust automatically. Now, shadow it. Adjust automatically. Good. Automatic adjustment saves mental energy. Listen. With less energy spent on language, I focus more on meaning and connection. Now, repeat. Focus on meaning. Now listen again. Connection matters most. Now, shadow it. Matters most. Good. Let's imagine another everyday exchange. Listen. Thanks for taking the time to explain that. No problem at all. Happy to help. Now, repeat. Happy to help. Now listen again. Anytime. Now, shadow it. Anytime. Good. These responses sound natural because they're common. Listen. Common language builds comfort. Now, repeat. Builds comfort. Now listen again. Comfort builds confidence. Now, shadow it. Builds confidence. Good. Confidence shows in how I handle misunderstandings. Listen. If something goes wrong, I don't blame my English. Now, repeat. I don't blame my English. Now listen again. Misunderstandings happen in every language. Now, shadow it. They happen. Good. This perspective removes fear. Listen. When fear disappears, communication becomes smoother. Now, repeat. Communication becomes smoother. Now listen again. I stay engaged. Now, shadow it. Stay engaged. Good. Engagement keeps conversations alive. Listen. I notice when someone seems confused, and I clarify calmly. Now, repeat. I clarify calmly. Now listen again. Without frustration. Now, shadow it. Without frustration. Good. Calm clarification sounds confident. Listen. I might say what I mean is, or, let me put it another way. Now, repeat. Let me put it another way. Now listen again. This keeps things clear. Now, shadow it. Keeps things clear. Good. Clear communication reduces tension. Listen. Reduced tension makes discussions more productive. Now, repeat. More productive. Now listen again. People feel heard. Now, shadow it. Feel heard. Good. Feeling heard strengthens relationships. Listen. As relationships strengthen, my motivation to use English increases. Now, repeat. Motivation increases. Now listen again. It feels rewarding. Now, shadow it. Feels rewarding. Good. Reward comes from connection, not perfection. Listen. I'm no longer chasing a level label. Now, repeat. I'm not chasing labels. Now listen again. I'm building real ability. Now, shadow it. Real ability. Good. Real ability shows up in daily use. Listen. I can handle phone calls, longer messages, and spontaneous conversations more comfortably now. Now, repeat. More comfortably now. Now listen again. Practice. Shows results. Now, shadow it. Shows results. Good. Results appear quietly. Listen. I don't need constant feedback to know I'm improving. Now, repeat. I know I'm improving. Now listen again. I feel it in my reactions. Now, shadow it. Feel it. Good. Feeling progress is motivating. Listen. I stay consistent because this approach fits my life. Now, repeat. Fits my life. Now listen again. I can maintain it long term. Now, shadow it. Long term. Good. Sustainability leads to advanced fluency. Listen. Over time, my language becomes more precise without effort. Now, repeat. More precise. Now listen again. My expressions feel natural. Now. Shadow it. Feel natural. Good. Natural expression is the goal. Listen. I don't aim to sound like someone else. I aim to be understood clearly. Now. Repeat. Understood clearly. Now listen again. That's enough. Now. Shadow it. That's enough. Good. This mindset keeps me grounded. Listen. As I continue using English this way, my confidence remains steady and realistic. Now. Repeat. Steady and realistic. Now listen again. Not fragile. Now. Shadow it. Not fragile. Good. This stability allows me to handle challenges calmly. Listen. When something feels difficult, I stay patient. Now. Repeat. I stay patient. Now listen again. Difficulty doesn't discourage me. Now. Shadow it. Doesn't discourage me. Good. Patience keeps progress moving. Listen. Step by step. English becomes easier to manage in every area of my life. Now. Repeat. Step by step. Now listen again. It becomes part of me. Now. Is shadow it. Part of me. Good. With this level of integration, English supports my communication naturally, consistently, and confidently, helping me navigate real-life situations with clarity, flexibility, and calm presence. As this calm confidence carries forward, I notice how English supports long-term thinking rather than short-term performance. Listen. I don't worry about whether today was better than yesterday. Now. Repeat. I don't worry about daily comparison. Now listen again. I focus on staying consistent. Now. Shadow it. Staying consistent. Good. Consistency creates depth. Listen. When I use English regularly, even in small ways, it stays active in my mind. Now. Repeat. It stays active. Now listen again. I don't lose momentum easily. Now. Shadow it. Don't lose momentum. Good. Momentum feels gentle, not forced. Listen. I no longer push myself to practice when I'm exhausted. Now. Repeat. I don't push myself. Now listen again. I respect my energy. Now. Shadow it. Respect my energy. Good. Respecting energy keeps learning sustainable. Listen. Sustainable practice matters more than intense effort. Now. Repeat. Sustainable practice matters. Now listen again. It keeps me coming back. Now. Shadow it. Keeps me coming back. Good. Let's imagine a realistic long conversation. Listen. We talked for quite a while, and it didn't feel tiring. Now. Repeat. It didn't feel tiring. Now listen again. I stayed engaged the whole time. Now. Shadow it. Stayed. Engaged. Good. Engagement without fatigue is a strong sign of progress. Listen. I can now listen to longer content without drifting away. Now. Repeat. I listen longer. Now listen again. My attention stays steady. Now. Shadow it. Attention stays steady. Good. This steadiness supports deeper understanding. Listen. I follow ideas from beginning to end instead of catching fragments. Now. Repeat. From beginning to end. Now listen again. This makes everything clearer. Now. Shadow it. Makes it clearer. Good. As clarity improves, I feel more comfortable expressing complex thoughts. Listen. I don't simplify my ideas too much anymore. Now. Repeat. I don't oversimplify. Now listen again. I trust my ability to explain. Now. Shadow it. Trust my ability. Good. Trust allows expression to expand. Listen. When I explain something, I naturally add examples or context. Now. Repeat. I add context. Now listen again. This helps others follow me. Now, shadow it. Helps others follow. Good. Helping others understand feels rewarding. Listen. I notice people respond more thoughtfully to what I say. Now, repeat. They respond thoughtfully. Now listen again. That encourages me. Now, shadow it. Encourages me. Good. Encouragement strengthens motivation. Listen. Motivation now comes from interaction, not from tracking progress. Now, repeat. Comes from interaction. Now listen again. Real use feels meaningful. Now, shadow it. Feels meaningful? Good. Meaning keeps language alive. Listen. I don't practice English to reach a number or a label. Now, repeat. Not for a label. Now listen again. I practice to communicate. Now, shadow it. To communicate. Good. Communication is the purpose. Listen. I measure success by how easily I connect with others. Now, repeat. How easily I connect. Now listen again. Connection feels natural. Now, shadow it. Feels natural. Good. As my experience grows, I notice fewer emotional ups and downs. Listen. I'm not frustrated one day and confident the next. Now, repeat. No big swings. Now listen again. My confidence is stable. Now, shadow it. Stable. Good. Stability builds resilience. Listen. When I face difficulty, I don't get discouraged. Now, repeat. I don't get discouraged. Now listen again. I adjust and continue. Now, shadow it. Adjust and continue. Good. Adjustment keeps progress moving forward. Listen. I accept that some days feel easier than others. Now, repeat. Some days feel easier. Now listen again. That's normal. Now, shadow it. That's normal. Good. Acceptance reduces pressure. Listen. With less pressure, my listening improves naturally. Now, repeat. Listening improves naturally. Now listen again. I hear more clearly. Now, shadow it. Hear more clearly. Good. Clear listening supports clear speaking. Listen. When I understand better, my responses become more accurate. Now, repeat. More accurate. Now listen again. Without extra effort. Now, shadow it. Without effort. Good. Effortless accuracy grows with exposure. Listen. I don't correct myself constantly while speaking. Now, repeat. I don't constantly correct. Now listen again. I let speech flow. Now, shadow it. Let it flow. Good. Flow keeps conversations alive. Listen. After conversations, I feel satisfied instead of drained. Now, repeat. Feel satisfied. Now listen again. That's a big change. Now, shadow it. Big change. Good. Satisfaction motivates continuation. Listen. I'm comfortable using English across different topics. Now, repeat. Different topics. Now listen again. Even unfamiliar ones. Now, shadow it. Even unfamiliar. Good. Comfort with unfamiliar topics shows readiness. Listen. I don't avoid conversations anymore. Now, repeat. I don't avoid them. Now listen again. I'm open to interaction. Now, shadow it. Open to interaction. Good. Openness invites growth. Listen. I say yes more often when opportunities arise. Now, repeat. I say yes. Now listen again. I trust myself. Now, shadow it. Trust myself. Good. Trust replaces hesitation. Listen. I'm no longer waiting until I feel ready. Now, repeat. not waiting. Now listen again. I act and adapt. Now. Shadow it. Act and adapt. Good. Acting builds experience. Listen. Experience shapes fluency more than study alone. Now. Repeat. Experience shapes fluency. Now listen again. Real use matters most. Now. Shadow it. Matters most. Good. As this mindset settles in, English becomes part of my long-term routine. Listen. It's something I live with, not something I prepare for. Now. Repeat. I live with it. Now listen again. It fits naturally. Now. Shadow it. Fits naturally. Good. Natural fit makes practice effortless. Listen. I don't plan every interaction in advance. Now. Repeat. I don't plan everything. Now listen again. I respond authentically. Now. Shadow it. Respond authentically. Good. Authentic responses feel comfortable. Listen. Comfort allows my personality to come through. Now. Repeat. My personality comes through. Now listen again. I sound like myself. Now. Shadow it. Like myself. Good. Being myself in English feels normal now. Listen. I don't feel like I'm performing. Now. Repeat. I'm not performing. Now listen again. I'm just communicating. Now. Shadow it. Just communicating. Good. This sense of normalcy is important. Listen. When something feels normal, it becomes sustainable. Now. Repeat. Becomes sustainable. Now listen again. It lasts. Now. Shadow it. It lasts. Good. Lasting progress is the real goal. Listen. Over time, this steady use leads toward advanced fluency. Now. Repeat. Toward advanced fluency. Now listen again. Without pressure. Now. Shadow it. Without pressure. Good. With this approach, English continues to support my daily life calmly and reliably, helping me communicate clearly, think effectively, and stay connected in real situations, day after day, without stress or force. As this steady rhythm continues, I realize that English no longer feels like a separate activity in my life. Listen. It blends into my daily routine without effort. Now. Repeat. It blends into my routine. Now listen again. I don't switch into a different mode. Now. Shadow it. Different mode. Good. This integration matters. Listen. When language becomes integrated, it stops demanding attention. Now. Repeat. It stops demanding attention. Now listen again. I use it naturally. Now. Shadow it. Use it naturally. Good. Natural use allows deeper thinking. Listen. I can focus on ideas, opinions, and emotions instead of structure. Now. Repeat. I focus on ideas. Now listen again. Not structure. Now. Shadow it. Not structure. Good. Structure supports meaning quietly in the background. Listen. I trust my internal sense of what sounds right. Now. Repeat. I trust my sense. Now listen again. I don't overanalyze. Now. Shadow it. Don't overanalyze. Good. Overanalysis interrupts flow. Listen. Flow is what carries conversations forward. Now. Repeat. Flow carries conversations. Now listen again. It keeps things moving. Now. Shadow it. Keeps moving. Good. When conversations move smoothly, connection deepens. Listen. I notice subtle reactions, tone shifts, and emotional cues more clearly now. Now. Repeat. I notice subtle cues. Now listen again. That changes how I respond. Now, shadow it. Changes how I respond. Good. Responsiveness is a sign of advanced listening. Listen. I don't wait for my turn to speak. Now. Repeat. I don't wait. Now listen again. I listen fully. Now. Shadow it. Listen fully. Good. Full listening builds trust. Listen. When people feel heard, conversations become more meaningful. Now. Repeat. More meaningful. Now listen again. Less superficial. Now. Shadow it. Less superficial. Good. Depth replaces surface level exchanges. Listen. I can discuss ideas, experiences, and perspectives with more nuance. Now. Repeat. With more nuance. Now listen again. I don't rush my point. Now. Shadow it. Don't rush. Good. Nuance takes time. Listen. I'm comfortable letting conversations unfold at their own pace. Now. Repeat. Their own pace. Now listen again. I don't force outcomes. Now. Shadow it. Don't force. Good. Not forcing creates balance. Listen. Balance keeps interactions natural. Now. Repeat. Keeps them natural. Now listen again. Not tense. Now. Shadow it. Not tense. Good. Tension fades as confidence stabilizes. Listen. I no longer feel pressure to prove my ability. Now. Repeat. No pressure to prove. Now listen again. I just communicate. Now. Shadow it. Just communicate. Good. This shift changes everything. Listen. When I stop proving, I start connecting. Now. Repeat. Start connecting. Now listen again. Connection feels real. Now. Shadow it. Feels real. Good. Real connection motivates continued use. Listen. I don't practice English to impress. Now. Repeat. Not to impress. Now listen again. I use it to participate. Now. Shadow it. To participate. Good. Participation builds belonging. Listen. Belonging encourages confidence. Now. Repeat. Encourages confidence. Now listen again. Confidence feels quiet. Now. Shadow it. Quiet confidence. Good. Quiet confidence is stable. Listen. It doesn't disappear under pressure. Now. Repeat. It doesn't disappear. Now listen again. It holds steady. Now. Shadow it. Hold steady. Good. This steadiness helps in challenging situations. Listen. When conversations become complex, I stay grounded. Now. Repeat. Stay grounded. Now listen again. I don't shut down. Now. Shadow it. Don't shut down. Good. Staying present is key. Listen. Presence allows thoughtful responses instead of reactive ones. Now. Repeat. Thoughtful responses. Now listen again. Not reactive. Now. Shadow it. Not reactive. Good. Thoughtfulness improves communication quality. Listen. I choose words more carefully without slowing down. Now. Repeat. Choose words carefully. Now listen again. Still natural. Now. Shadow it. Still natural. Good. Natural precision develops with time. Listen. I don't search for advanced words. Now. Repeat. I don't search. Now listen again. The right words appear. Now. Shadow it. Appear naturally. Good. When words appear naturally, expression feels effortless. Listen. Effortless expression supports longer conversations. Now. Repeat. Longer conversations. Now listen again. Without fatigue. Now. Shadow it. Without fatigue. Good. Endurance is important. Listen. I can stay engaged for extended periods without mental strain. Now. Repeat. Without strain. Now listen again. I feel comfortable. Now. Shadow it. Feel comfortable. Good. Comfort allows adaptability. Listen. I adapt to different speakers, accents, and styles more easily now. Now. Repeat. Adapt more easily. Now listen again. I stay flexible. Now. Shadow it. Stay flexible. Good. Flexibility supports real-world communication. Listen. The real world is unpredictable. Now. Repeat. It's unpredictable. Now listen again. I'm prepared. Now. Shadow it. I'm prepared. Good. Preparation doesn't mean control. Listen. It means readiness to respond. Now. Repeat. Ready to respond. Now listen again. Not rehearsed. Now. Shadow it. Not rehearsed. Good. This readiness builds trust in myself. Listen. I trust that I can handle what comes. Now. Repeat. I can handle it. Now listen again. Even mistakes. Now. Shadow it. Even mistakes. Good. Mistakes no longer stop me. Listen. If something goes wrong, I adjust calmly. Now. Repeat. Adjust calmly. Now listen again. And move on. Now. Shadow it. Move on. Good. Moving on keeps communication alive. Listen. I don't replay conversations obsessively afterward. Now. Repeat. I don't replay them. Now listen again. I let them go. Now. Shadow it. Let them go. Good. Letting go protects confidence. Listen. Confidence grows when I allow imperfection. Now. Repeat. Allow imperfection. Now listen again. That's realistic. Now. Shadow it. That's realistic. Good. Realistic expectations support long-term progress. Listen. I'm no longer chasing fluency as a destination. Now. Repeat. Not chasing it. Now listen again. I'm living it. Now. Shadow it. Living it. Good. Living the language means using it daily. Naturally. And without pressure. Listen. This approach keeps me consistent, calm, and connected. Now. Repeat. Consistent and calm. Now listen again. Connected. Now. Shadow it. Connected. Good. With this steady integration, English becomes a reliable tool in my life, supporting clear thinking, meaningful interaction, and confident expression across real situations, allowing me to communicate effectively and authentically, day after day, as part of who I am. As this integration settles fully, I notice that English no longer competes with my thoughts. Listen. It moves alongside them. Now. Repeat. It moves alongside my thoughts. Now listen again. I don't translate internally. Now. Shadow it. Don't translate. Good. This absence of translation creates mental space. Listen. With more space, my thinking feels clearer and faster. Now. Repeat. Clearer and faster. Now listen again. I respond naturally. Now. Shadow it. Respond naturally. Good. Natural response reflects real fluency. Listen. I don't wait for perfect phrasing. Now. Repeat. I don't wait. Now listen again. I start speaking and refine as I go. Now. Shadow it. Refine as I go. Good. Refinement happens in motion. Listen. When I speak, I trust the process. Now. Repeat. I trust the process. Now listen again. It carries me forward. Now. Shadow it. Carries me forward. Good. Forward movement prevents hesitation. Listen. Hesitation fades when momentum builds. Now. Repeat. Hesitation fades. Now listen again. Momentum builds. Now. Shadow it. Momentum builds. Good. Momentum supports confidence. Listen. Confidence now feels calm and grounded. Now. Repeat. Calm and grounded. Now listen again. Not loud or forced. Now. Shadow it. Not forced. Good. This grounded confidence is reliable. Listen. It stays with me in different environments. Now. Repeat. Different environments. Now listen again. Work. Travel. Daily life. Now. Shadow it. Daily life. Good. English fits into all of it. Listen. I can switch between topics without stress. Now. Repeat. Switch between topics. Now listen again. Smoothly. Now. Shadow it. Smoothly. Good. Smooth transitions reflect control. Listen. I handle abstract ideas more comfortably now. Now. Repeat. Abstract ideas. Now listen again. I explain opinions clearly. Now. Shadow it. Explain clearly. Good. Clarity matters more than complexity. Listen. I don't try to sound advanced. Now. Repeat. I don't try. Now listen again. I sound clear. Now. Shadow it. Sound clear. Good. Clear speech is effective speech. Listen. People understand me without effort. Now. Repeat. Without effort. Now listen again. That feels good. Now. Shadow it. Feels good. Good. Ease in understanding builds trust. Listen. Trust changes how people interact with me. Now. Repeat. Changes interaction. Now listen again. They engage more openly. Now. Shadow it. Engage openly. Good. Openness leads to better conversations. Listen. I notice conversations feel more balanced. Now. Repeat. More balanced. Now listen again. I speak and listen equally. Now. Shadow it. Equally. Good. Balance is essential. Listen. I'm not dominating or withdrawing. Now. Repeat. Not dominating. Now listen again. Not withdrawing. Now. Shadow it. Balanced. Good. Balance supports mutual respect. Listen. Respectful communication feels natural now. Now. Repeat. Feels natural. Now listen again. I don't think about technique. Now. Shadow it. Don't think. Good. Technique has become habit. Listen. Habits free my attention. Now. Repeat. Free my attention. Now listen again. I focus on people. Now. Shadow it. Focus on people. Good. People-centered communication is powerful. Listen. I care more about understanding others than about my own performance. Now. Repeat. Understanding others. Now listen again. Performance fades. Now. Shadow it. Performance fades. Good. When performance fades, authenticity appears. Listen. I sound more like myself in English. Now. Repeat. Like myself. Now listen again. My personality shows. Now. Shadow it. Personality shows. Good. Personality makes language alive. Listen. I use humor more comfortably now. Now. Repeat. More comfortably. Now listen again. Light comments come naturally. Now. Shadow it. Come naturally. Good. Humor signals confidence. Listen. I also handle serious topics with sensitivity. Now. Repeat. With sensitivity. Now listen again. I choose words carefully. Now. Shadow it. Choose carefully. Good. careful choice doesn't slow me down. Listen. It feels instinctive. Now, repeat. Feels instinctive. Now listen again. Not calculated. Now, shadow it. Not calculated. Good. Instinctive use is a marker of advanced ability. Listen. I don't prepare scripts in my head anymore. Now, repeat. I don't prepare scripts. Now listen again. I trust spontaneous speech. Now, shadow it. Trust spontaneity. Good. Spontaneity keeps language flexible. Listen. Flexibility helps me adapt quickly. Now, repeat. Adapt quickly. Now listen again. Two different situations. Now, shadow it. Different situations. Good. Situations change constantly. Listen. My English adjusts without conscious effort. Now, repeat. Adjusts naturally. Now listen again. I stay present. Now, shadow it. Stay present. Good. Presence improves connection. Listen. When I'm present, conversations feel meaningful. Now, repeat. Feel meaningful. Now, listen again. Not rushed. Now, shadow it. Not rushed. Good. Time pressure disappears. Listen. I'm comfortable with silence when it appears. Now, repeat. Comfortable with silence. Now listen again. It doesn't scare me. Now, shadow it. Doesn't scare me. Good. Silence can be part of communication. Listen. I use pauses intentionally now. Now, repeat. Use pauses. Now listen again. They add clarity. Now, shadow it. Add clarity. Good. Clear pauses. Support understanding. Listen. I don't fill every gap with words. Now, repeat. Don't fill every gap. Now listen again. I allow space. Now, shadow it. Allow space. Good. Space shows confidence. Listen. Confidence now supports long-term use. Now, repeat. Supports long-term use. Now listen again. I'm not worried about losing progress. Now, shadow it. Not worried. Good. Progress feels stable. Listen. Even if I stop for a short time, I can return easily. Now, repeat. Return easily. Now listen again. The foundation is strong. Now, shadow it. Foundation is strong. Good. Strong foundations last. Listen. This steady foundation moves me naturally toward higher levels. Now, repeat. Toward higher levels. Now listen again. Without pressure. Now, shadow it. Without pressure. Good. Pressure is no longer part of my journey. Listen. I continue improving simply by living my life in English when needed. Now, repeat. Living my life. Now listen again. Naturally. Now, shadow it. Naturally. Good. This natural approach keeps me consistent, relaxed, and confident. Listen. English is no longer a challenge to overcome. Now, repeat. Not a challenge. Now listen again. It's a tool I use. Now, shadow it. A tool I use. Good. A reliable tool. Listen. It supports my work, relationships, and learning. Now, repeat. Supports my life. Now listen again. In real situations. Now, shadow it. Real situations. Good. With this mindset and practice, English remains a steady companion, helping me communicate clearly, think freely, and connect genuinely with others, allowing fluency to continue growing naturally over time, without force, without fear, and without limits.